What's up, guys? Welcome back to Deck Tech for Decks. I'm your host Caleb. If you want to support me, you can always use my TCGplayer link in the description down below, or as always, just liking, commenting, subscribing will do the trick. Now, let's get into today's Deck Tech with the partner pairing of Sam and Frodo. Now, I really like this because it's going to give you a consistent way to draw cards while giving you a consistent way to sacrifice tokens, which is going to be the main goal of this deck. We are just going to create as much food, treasure tokens, any kind of tokens we can, and then sacrifice them to take all of our opponents out. Basically taking an aristocrat strategy route as opposed to just creating food tokens, gaining life, and getting life gain synergies. So we are going to be featuring a lot of cards that generate, again, treasure tokens, and then this will have an artifact sub-theme. That way we can use stuff like Marionette Master, get her really big, and then just start sacrificing all of our treasure tokens, all of our food tokens to drain our opponents out for the win. So if that sounds like a deck tech you want to get into, let's get into it. Let's start off by talking about all that token generation. We have Cloakwood Hermit. This is going to be amazing because we have two commanders. So now all we have to do is make sure one of our creatures dies, and then we're just going to get 4 tokens at the end of our end step every turn. Canoptic Scarab Swarm can hose someone's graveyard while getting us an instant board state. Mere Battlesphere. It is 7 mana, but again, we get that instant board state and a lot of artifacts to sacrifice, not to mention a big beater. Hangerback Walker. This one's going to be very recurrable and the deck. We just cast it, kill it, get a lot of stuff to sacrifice, and repeat. Wormcoil Engine. This one's going to be really fun to recur because now we just throw the 6/6 onto the battlefield, sacrifice it, we get 2 3/3s, and then again, rinse and repeat. We're farthering our game plan while getting an instant board state. Emotech the Stormlord. We are going to be shuffling a lot of artifacts in and out of our graveyard, so it's going to be amazing to just, again, get a board state off of that. Bootlegger Stash is going to be amazing with those Marionette Master-like effects. This can basically close out the game in the right scenario. Life Insurance not only gives us the ability to extort, which will instantly set off our commander, Frodo, and it will also give us access to more treasure tokens. Pitiless Plunderer. Now whenever we're sacrificing our creatures, we're just getting more and more treasures. Ruthless Technomancer can not only instantly get us a decent amount of treasures, we can then use those treasures or any food tokens to recur our creatures from our graveyard straight to the battlefield. Smothering Tithe, really good. Taxing effects, super broken. Tireless Provisioners, just gonna basically give us a treasure token whenever land enters the battlefield. We have the Greatest of the Eagles. I'm not even going to attempt to butcher that name. This is going to be super solid, and there are scenarios where we can get a food token to sacrifice on each of our opponent's turn as well, and then we just untap with 3 extra 3/3 flyers. Really good for creating those tokens while also giving us consistent blockers and honestly a pretty decent board state. Gnome Master Chef. This guy can not only create a lot of food tokens, but effectively protect our board state by letting us sacrifice those food tokens to make our creatures indestructible. Mondrak, Glory Dominus, doubling up on all of these tokens, gonna be pretty solid, and we can make this thing indestructible. Grim Hireling is not only going to be really good with Frodo because we are attacking with Frodo every turn consistently, it's also really good to sacrifice those treasure tokens to just be some added removal. Elish Norn is going to be amazing in the deck. Not only does she synergize with the artifact portion of the deck, but she can be a solid game ender. Incubating 5 times is going to be pretty good, especially when we give all of those incubation tokens double strike and +1, as well as all of our other creatures we have on the battlefield. And hey, if that doesn't end the game, we get a solid board wipe afterwards. Chatterfang. Now this does go infinite with Pitiless Plunderer, but that's not why he's in the deck. He's in the deck because just creating a bunch of blockers whenever we're creating those treasures or food tokens is going to be really solid, and then we can sacrifice those squirrels for, again, added removal. It's also, like I said, going to go infinite with Pitiless Plunderer. Speaking of instant board states, we have Farmer Cotton. This is going to net us a ton of food tokens and a ton of halfling tokens. So now again, we get that instant board state and a ton of food tokens to sacrifice. And last but not least, we have Academy Manufacturer. This is going to be amazing with all of that token generation I just went over. So now whenever we create a food or treasure token, we're just going to create all 3 of these tokens instead. Now let's get into the core of the deck. We have Agent of the Iron Throne. And remember, this is another background, so this is going to trigger for each of our commanders. So now whenever we sacrifice a creature or an artifact, everybody's going to take 2 damage pretty good. Mirkwood Bats also makes an appearance in the deck whenever we create or sacrifice those tokens. We're just going to be dealing a lot of damage to people. Disciple of the Vault, again a super solid card to deal damage to our opponents whenever we're sacrificing those artifacts. And last but not least, we have Marionette Master, possibly the best option for dealing damage to our opponents. Inspiring Leader, this is going to be the more combat-centric aspect of the deck, giving all of our creatures +4/+4, because remember this is a background, and we do have 2 commanders. Now all of our tokens are super buffed up and ready to take out our opponents. Blossoming Bogbeast is absolutely broken in this deck. If we just sacrifice 2 food tokens gaining 6 life, then Blossoming Bogbeast is going to gain us an additional 2 life. All of our creatures are going to get +9/+9 until end of turn. Yes, that ends games very quickly. Mezzarek, this guy has the potential to make our creatures massive. Whenever we're sacrificing those food, tokens, anything, we're buffing our entire board up. Samwise also makes an appearance again in the deck. Now we can not only recur our cards from the graveyard, but we also have another way to generate food tokens. Workshop Assistant, Mere Retriever, Junk Diver, and Scrap Trawler are really flexible cards in the deck. We have a lot of artifact creatures that we want to bring back from the graveyard. Not to mention, with the right setup, these guys can loop themselves in and out of the graveyard using stuff like Ashnod's Altar or Cart Clan Ironworks, and then you'll just need a payoff like Marionette Master to drain out everybody. This is a net loss of mana though, so you will need a Pitiless Plunderer to go ahead and make that infinite, so there is that. Also, we do run Tashar. This is also going to be amazing recursion in the deck because we run a lot of low CMC creatures in the deck. Moving on to card advantage, we have Grim Horospex or Midnight Reaper. Super solid when we're sacrificing those creatures. We're just getting card advantage. Chronomancer is going to be an amazing way to go ahead and sacrifice some of those artifacts for value instead of gaining life. Esper Sentinel comes down early, sticks onto the battlefield, and gives us consistent card advantage. The One Ring, we do have ways to gain life in this deck, so those bird encounters are not going to be that horrible. Additionally, we do have ways to sacrifice artifacts in the deck and bring them back from the graveyard, so we can sacrifice this thing, bring it back, and gain protection from everything again, so that's also pretty solid. Hey, not to mention they tacked Indestructible on this thing, so it's going to stick onto the battlefield. Sylvan Library is really going to make those food tokens useful because now you're trading life to draw cards, and then you can gain life with those food tokens. Basically, trading food tokens for card draw. I mean, that's kind of how it works in my head. Then you have Guardian Projects and Beast Whisperer. Guardian Projects is a little bit better because it's on ETB, so whenever we're just recurring stuff, we even get the card draw. Beast Whisperer still will be very useful in the deck though. We then have Toski, Bearer of Secrets, and Ornn Frostfang. These are going to be amazing because we are attacking with our commander consistently, and he will be really hard to block. So now we're getting card advantage off of that, and then whenever we go wide, we're getting even more card advantage. Lorn of the Third Path, not only is she consistent removal, but she is card draw. Now, we can just not draw cards, so she's not exactly a downside, and if someone needs to draw a card to get rid of a threat, we want to help our opponents out. That way we can get rid of our other opponents, right? So she's just very useful in that aspect all around. Read the Bones, super solid early game to dig deep, get those cards you need, especially those land drops we need, and that's going to do it for card advantage. Moving on to ramp, we have Ashnod's Altar and Cart Clan Ironworks. These are going to be amazing. Now we can use food tokens for mana using Cart Clan Ironworks, which is going to be way more useful than the life. Smeagol, Helpful Guide. We are going to be constantly tempted by the ring, and we are going to be constantly sacrificing creatures. So now we're even ramping whenever we attack with our Frodo, and whenever we sacrifice those creatures, Smeagol will even tempt us by the ring farther, getting us even more lands. Nature's Lore, just super solid early ramp that does fix our mana. Secure Tribuilder, this guy can be consistent ramp in the deck, and he is recurable, so we can use him multiple times. Jaheira, Friend of Forests, and Inspiring Statuary. These 2 cards are going to allow us to tap our treasure and food tokens for mana, and you know, Jaheira, Friends of the Forest is already just going to do that for all of our tokens, so even our creature tokens will now tap for mana. Super solid. Cryptghast, not only do we have another Extort ability, so now we can again trigger our commander even more consistently, we also do run a lot of multi-typed lands in the deck, right? So if the land is a forest and a swamp, it's still a swamp and will trigger Cryptghast. If it's a plain and a swamp, it will trigger Cryptghast. So I know it kind of seems like a weird pick in a 3-color deck, but if we build our mana base in a certain way, we can make it a lot more useful than it seems on its face. And last but not least, we have that Soul Soul Ring. Moving on to removal, we have Armix. I like this guy because we are going to have a lot of artifacts, hopefully in the graveyard and on the battlefield, and then we can just take out one of our opponent's creatures consistently every turn. Haywire Might, super recurable, really solid for just taking out those artifacts and enchantments. Witch of the Moors. This is going to be really annoying for those Voltron strategies that don't really play a lot of creatures, and it is also solid recursion. Damn, a really flexible card that can either take out one creature or it's a solid board wipe. Anguished Unmaking and Assassin's Trophy can just get rid of any permanent that's causing us issues, and then we have Austere Command, another solid board wipe. That's gonna do it, guys, for the deck tech. I hope you guys enjoyed my take on the Frodo and Sam duo, and as always, I hope this helped you in your deck building endeavors, and I'll see you in the next one.